Hi, it's Bonnie. Doing our first of hopefully many of the COVID-19 cooking lessons. I had this idea way back when we first shut down in March that wouldn't it be fun to do a cooking show, showcasing recipes that people came up with using whatever they had in their freezer or their cupboard. So we have created a web address that's on the library website that you can go to and you can submit a recipe. And then each week I'm going to choose one that we will showcase and I will give the recipe. For today, I'm going to do one that I came up with. And I'm going to move the computer so hopefully you see the top of my head. Over at the stove, I have two cast iron skillets already on the stove. And the important thing with cast iron is the fact that you must have the metal hot and the oil hot before you add the food. If you do not have it hot, then your food is going to stick. Now, I come from a long line of cast iron cookware cookers, mother, grandmother, probably great-grandmother. So cast iron is second nature for me. You can fry it, you can bake in it, you can boil in it. So it's a really versatile medium, and it gives you a nice even heat. So as I'm letting this oil heat back up, I had it all hot and then the computer went down, so we kind of had to regroup and rethink. So I am making a hash brown that has fresh vegetables in it. When I did it myself, I put everything in one skillet. And what I ended up with was soggy hash browns. I like a crisp hash brown, and so I decided this time I would use two different skillets. One skillet I'll brown the vegetables in, and the other skillet will be for frying the hash browns. So again, I'm making sure that the metal is nice and hot, the oil is nice and hot. I put some canola oil in here first, and then I put like a tablespoon of real butter in both skillets. I like the taste of the real butter, but the real butter on its own will burn. And if you add the butter to the oil, that will keep your butter from burning. So I'm going to go ahead, my butter is sizzling, and you want to make sure that the pan and the oil is hot enough that when you put your food in, you hear it talk to you, or you hear the sizzle. So in this pan, I think I'll go ahead and put my hash browns. And again, my idea was to simply use up what I had in the freezer or the fridge or the cupboard. So I'm going to go ahead, and you can hear the sizzle. So that was nice and hot, ready for the potatoes to go in. So I've got the potatoes in, a little salt and pepper. I'll put in next. Now in this pan, I put, this is going to be for my vegetables. So again, I had some sweet pepper, and these are those little colored peppers that you get, that they call them party peppers or something like that. There's red, orange, yellow usually in the bag. So I put those in. And then I have an onion that I've already chopped, and I chopped it quite fine. When I put onion in something, I don't want to bite down into a big piece of onion. Some people like that. I would prefer to have onion that is just nice and small. It goes through your mixture very well. So no matter when you take a bite, you get a little bite of onion. And then the next thing that I had some frozen sweet corn. So I took the frozen sweet corn. Hands are your best tool, as I'm sure you've noticed by now. And so now I'm going to saute these vegetables and get the moisture out of them. The potatoes are just browning away. They're frying away. And I'll put a little salt and pepper in here. to get a little flavor going in there. Now I can see that my hash browns need a little more oil. So I'm simply going to take and put a little more canola oil in there. I do not want them to stick. And really, there isn't too much there. Now already in this skillet, the vegetables are starting to marinate. They're starting to saute, and it's getting all of the moisture out of them. It's called weeping. We're going to let them weep all their moisture out. So by the time we add those vegetables to the potatoes, they're going to be nice and dry. So while those are cooking, I'm going to move. You know, this is kind of limited technology here. And I want to talk a little kitchen. The first knife that many people have in their kitchen is the chef's knife. And this is a large knife. It has a wide blade. It has quite a heavy blade. This is a good blade for cutting meat. If you're trying to cut like a large roast, especially if it's raw, or if you're trying to cut something that's partially frozen, this gives you a lot of torque. You can really press down on this. You can put your hand up here on the spine. This is the spine of the needle, and then the blade of the needle, and the butt of the needle, and of course your handle. So this is for cutting down and cutting with a lot of pressure. I use this knife sometimes. This isn't the knife that I use all the time. This is the knife that I like the most when I'm cooking, and this is a shantuka, and it's a Japan knife. You see the blade is curved, and that's so when you chop your vegetables, you do it on a curved motion like that. The little welts or the little nubbins in the blade, those just make it so it more easily cuts through your vegetable. This is my favorite knife for cutting any kind of vegetable or herb. This is my go-to utility knife. Then of course you have knives like a filleting knife or a boning knife. That's a knife with a nice long blade, thin blade. The blade is flexible, and that's exactly what it's for. It's for taking and cutting meat away from the bone, whether it be beef or pork or chicken, a filleting knife or a boning knife. If you want to fillet a fish off of its skin, this is the type of knife you would use. It has a very thin blade, a very sharp blade. Let me stir just a second. Hate to leave you, but when you are cooking something like hash browns, you want to make sure that you don't just keep stirring them. You have to give the potato a chance to brown, which means it has to stay in contact with the surface of the pan. If you turn them too much, if you stir them too much, they get gummy, they stick together, they won't get nice and crisp. So we're just letting those cook away. Another knife that you'll have in your kitchen is a bread knife. For years, I had this little cheap bread knife, little skinny blade. The idea of a bread knife is with the serrated edges that you can saw bread, and that way you don't mush the bread down. Same thing with any kind of loaf of meat. Even like if you wanted to cut a turkey, it gives you that sawing motion, very sharp. Now you notice this blade is a forward blade, which means the knife is made all in one piece. Those are your strongest knives. They're your most durable knives. This is a knife. It's called the Tang. and the blade is forged, and then it's put inside of the wood. This, again, is a nice durable. The thing that changed going away from the wood, the all metal forged piece, washed very well. With your wooden blades, you always run the risk that you might leave a little food particle right where the blade and the wood come together, and then you have bacteria. This is a butcher knife. A lot of you probably have this in your kitchen. I know this was my mother's go-to knife. She did practically everything with this knife. This knife I found leaning against a tree in 1976 at rest area in Wyoming. So I've had that knife a long time. Next up, I have paring knives. All different kinds of paring knives. I like a paring knife with a nice thin blade. Again, this has a little issue because the dog chewed up the wooden handle and we had to rebuild the handle. But this one, it's another Chicago cutlery. So the blade, the tang goes all the way through the blade. Now this is just a cheap little paring knife, plastic, not a sharp knife. You can't even sharpen it, won't keep an edge, but you probably have some of those in your kitchen. This is another shaped paring knife. This is a very, very sharp paring knife. It has a thicker blade, a wider blade. So for me to peel, say, a potato or an apple, I go right back, or to peel strawberries, I go right back to my thin blade. But there's sometimes you want a paring knife. This knife would also be good used as a steak knife. They're kind of interchangeable, but again, they're very sharp. Now I'm going to take us back over to the stove. So let me lift the computer, and I can smell that things are burning very nicely. With cast iron, you can use the metal utensils for turning, which I really like metal utensils. Sometimes I use Teflon. It's okay. I just prefer my cast iron. But because my fire was hot and everything was ready to go, actually everything is ready to serve now. So I'm going to go ahead and put my potatoes on the bottom. And we have nice brown, crispy potatoes. If you have cheese in your refrigerator and you'd like to use a little cheese on top, cheese is always good on everything. The day that I made this, I didn't have any cheese on hand, and so it didn't get cheese. So now I have my nice brown hash browns. They're nice and done. And now I'm going to take my grill, and at this point now they're grilled veggies, and just put over the top. So I guess it's like a hash because you have the potatoes and the veggies. But here you go. You have your nice hash browns, and then you have your grilled vegetables that go on top. And this actually makes a very, very tasty dish. So I hope that you learned a lot today, and you'll try out cast iron. You'll use some of these varieties of knives. It's the same as any job that you want to do. If you have the right tool, it's going to make your job so much easier. And it's the same thing if you have the right knife. The right knife will make your job so much easier. Don't use a huge knife if you're working on a small project. Don't use a small knife if you're working on a large project. Just make sure your knife fits the job you're trying to do. So hopefully you'll enjoy the recipe. I rarely measure unless it's a cake or cookies. It has to be exact so it raises correctly. Otherwise, I just throw everything in the pan. So I'll look forward to looking for your recipe on the website. And I hope you try this, and I hope you enjoy it. Bye.